This is Bill Tinglin with Tour for Tolerance, proud sponsor of this podcast series on the Holocaust. Get ready. This week we take another powerful deep dive into history's darkest hour.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into a moment in history that, well, it's undeniably tough, but also incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, definitely powerful.
It's the liberation of the concentration camps during World War II.
Right.
We're going to focus on the strength, the unbelievable resilience of everyone involved, both those who were liberated and the liberators themselves.
It's a story that needs to be told and retold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So picture it, 1944, 1945, Allied forces are making their way across Europe, and what they find is it's the horrific truth of the Holocaust.
It's a turning point in history for sure.
It really is, and we're going to see this through the eyes of two incredible individuals, Khonia Epstein and Anastasia Braverman. Their stories, they're just so powerful, they give us this window into this dark chapter of history.
They remind us of the human cost of war, the individuals behind the statistic.
Exactly. It's so easy to forget that, and their stories just bring it all back into focus.
And they really highlight the importance of remembering, of learning from the past.
You know, you bring up a good point there. It wasn't just about military victory.
Yeah.
Right? It was a moral victory, too.
Oh, absolutely. The Allied forces, they didn't just, end the physical imprisonment, but they exposed this evil, this horror of the Nazi regime to the whole world.
That exposure, that's what forced everyone to confront what had happened.
It was a wake-up call for humanity.
And it sparked this global reflection, this need for accountability.
Right. And it makes you think, how does learning about all of this, how does it make you feel? Does it bring up any questions for you?
I think for a lot of people, it's a mix of emotions,
Yeah.
horror at what happened, but also, just this immense admiration for the resilience of those who lived through it.
It's inspiring. It's heartbreaking. It's a lot to process.
Okay, so let's dive into Khonia Epstein's story.
Mm-hmm.
Just try to imagine, okay, you're 13 years old.
Wow.
You escape a Nazi massacre,
Mm-hmm.
and then you join a partisan brigade.
These were essentially resistance groups, right?
Yeah.
Fighting the Nazis from within the occupied territories.
Exactly. So he wasn't just surviving, he was actively fighting back.
At 13. That's incredible.
It is, and his story really it embodies that strength of the human spirit that we were just talking about.
To survive a ghetto, to flee into the forest, to become a sniper at that age.
That's almost unbelievable.
It is. It really is. And he later wrote a book about his experiences, Tezuka.
But here's the thing, and this is what I find so fascinating. It's written from the perspective of his great-great-grandson.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it makes you think, why do you think he chose to tell his story that way?
I think it's a way to connect with younger generations, to make sure his story, it lives on, it resonates with those who didn't live through it.
It's like bridging that generational gap.
Exactly, making history more accessible.
And he didn't stop there. He immigrated to America in 1989, and he continues to share his story.
He's making sure the world never forgets.
That's right. And now let's talk about Anastasia Braverman. This woman, wow, she was a force to be reckoned with.
I've heard her name, but I don't know much about her.
She was born in Odessa, Ukraine,
Yeah.
and her life, like so many others, was just shattered when the Nazis invaded in 1941.
That must have been terrifying for so many families.
The disruption, the fear, the uncertainty.
That's hard to even imagine.
But in the middle of all of that chaos, she heard a radio broadcast by Stalin urging resistance.
So that's what sparked her determination to fight back.
It was a single radio broadcast.
That's amazing, the power of leadership and purpose in a time of crisis.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope can lead to action.
I love that.
By 15, she was aiding wounded soldiers. And then she studied meteorology, hoping to contribute even more.
Wow, she was driven.
But she wanted to be on the front lines. She yearned to be actively fighting.
She wasn't content to just sit back.
No, she wanted to make a real difference. And she got her chance, but it was in a pretty unusual way.
Oh, how so?
She was at a social event and ended up dancing with a commander.
Wow.
And that chance encounter led to this pivotal role in military communications.
It's incredible how these small moments can change the course of history.
It really is. You never know what seemingly insignificant event can lead to something so impactful.
Life is full of surprises, especially during wartime.
Anastasia excelled at decoding messages, and she was so proud of her contribution to the liberation of Ismail.
Her story shows that even those working behind the scenes, they were vital to the Allied victory.
Every contribution, big or small, mattered.
Absolutely.
But her story doesn't end there. After the war, Even though she fought for her country, she faced challenges because she was Jewish.
It's
It
heartbreaking.
reminds us that prejudice and discrimination, they don't just disappear when a war ends.
Unfortunately not.
It really highlights the complexities of identity, especially in a post-war society.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that prejudice can be so deeply rooted.
And she eventually immigrated to the U.S., became involved in local politics, even supported Mike Bloomberg's campaigns, but she always felt this disconnect from American veterans. She felt closer to those she fought alongside, no matter their nationality.
I guess that makes sense. The bond forged in combat, it's something special.
It transcends national boundaries.
It's about shared experiences, hardship, camaraderie.
It's a connection that's hard to replicate outside of those intense circumstances.
Yeah, right, it really is.
Her story, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to the liberators themselves.
Okay.
Their role in ending the Holocaust, exposing the horrors to the world, it was crucial.
They were the ones who brought those atrocities to light.
And I can't even imagine the emotional toll it must have taken to witness that firsthand.
Oh, to see those things, the emaciated prisoners, the piles of bodies, it's hard to fathom.
It would challenge anyone's understanding of humanity.
It would break you.
And yet, they persevered, they liberated those camps, and they helped bring a semblance of justice to the perpetrators.
It's a testament to their courage, not just facing physical danger, but confronting the darkest parts of human nature.
They were a beacon of hope in a time of unimaginable darkness.
They were.
And their actions, along with those of survivors like Khonia and Anastasia, they give us this powerful lens to understand the impact of this event.
Right, and their stories aren't over.
No, they're not. So as we move forward, what are the key takeaways here? What can we learn from their experiences and, this whole idea of liberation?
I think it really underscores the importance of, individual action, even in the face of just overwhelming evil. Like you said, young Khonia joining the resistance, Anastasia, using her skills to support the war effort. Their choices remind us that we all have the capacity to make a difference.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the liberators themselves, the soldiers who risked their lives to free others and to bring an end to the Holocaust. Their actions, they serve as a powerful reminder that we need to fight for what's right, even when it feels impossible.
It's a powerful message for sure.
Speaking of the liberators, the Allied forces that were involved in liberating the camps, it was a diverse group, really. You had American, British, Canadian, Soviet troops, all coming together in Nazi-occupied Europe, all with that same goal.
It was a truly global effort.
And as they advanced, they used a variety of strategies and often faced fierce resistance from the Germans.
Yeah, they weren't just walking in there. It was a fight every step of the way.
Absolutely. And they had to deal with logistical challenges, too, caring for the liberated prisoners, documenting the atrocities, and then trying to restore order in the aftermath of this just unimaginable chaos.
Rebuilding after something like that, it's hard to even comprehend the scale of the task.
It was a massive, massive undertaking, and their efforts were key not only in ending the Holocaust, but also in bringing a sense of justice, holding the perpetrators accountable.
Accountability is so important, especially after something as horrific as the Holocaust.
It really is. It's mind-boggling to think about the sheer scale of the operation and the emotional toll it must have taken on everyone involved. Can you even imagine being one of those soldiers coming face to face with the horrors of the camps?
I don't even know if I can. To see the emaciated prisoners, the piles of bodies, the scale of dehumanization, it would shake you to your core.
It really would. It would challenge your very understanding of humanity.
For sure.
And yet they rose to the occasion. They showed extraordinary courage and compassion in the face of just unimaginable suffering.
It's truly inspiring.
Their stories, along with the stories of the survivors, they provide us with such a powerful way to understand the impact of this historical event.
And it's not just about the immediate aftermath of the war either. Right?
Exactly. By liberating those camps and exposing the horrors of the Holocaust, they forced the world to really confront the consequences of hatred and intolerance.
They shined a light on the darkest corners of humanity.
And that exposure, it was a catalyst for global reflection. It spurred efforts to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again.
Think about the establishment of the United Nations, the Nuremberg trials. Those were direct responses to what was revealed during liberation.
You're right. Their actions had this ripple effect that shaped the course of history and really influenced how we understand human rights and international justice today.
We're still grappling with those consequences today.
Absolutely. It reminds us that history isn't just some, collection of dusty old stories. It's alive. It's breathing. It's shaping who we are and the world we live in right now.
It's a reminder that the past is never truly past.
And by understanding the past, by learning from both the triumphs and the tragedies, we can work towards building a better future.
Not just for ourselves, but for generations to come.
I like that. But it's not just about acknowledging the past, is it? It's about applying those lessons to the present.
Exactly. We have to take what we've learned and make it actionable.
Because these stories aren't just about what happened back then. They're relevant to us today. They challenge us to confront injustice, to stand up for those who are persecuted, to work towards a world where these kinds of atrocities never happen again.
It's a call to action for all of us.
It is. And by engaging with these stories, by listening to the voices of those who experienced this firsthand, we can cultivate empathy and understanding.
Those are the building blocks of a more just and compassionate future.
It's easy to get caught up in the statistics and the historical facts. But we have to remember that at the heart of it all are real people whose lives were forever changed.
We can't lose sight of the human cost of hatred and intolerance.
And it's not enough to just remember. We have to actively work against intolerance and prejudice in all its forms.
Because silence in the face of injustice is complicity.
Exactly. And by speaking out, by educating ourselves and others, we can help create a world that truly honors the sacrifices of those who came before us.
It's the least we can do.
Okay, so I have one final thought for you. Something to really ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. How do you think the experiences of the liberators and the survivors shaped their understanding of humanity?
That's a deep one. They saw the best and the worst of humanity. The unimaginable cruelty and hatred, but also incredible acts of courage, resilience, and compassion. That duality must have been so hard to process.
It would make you question everything you thought you knew.
I imagine it forced them to grapple with some really fundamental questions about the nature of good and evil, the potential for both darkness and light that exists within us all.
And that's what makes these stories so important. They remind us that history isn't something that happened over there a long time ago. It's part of who we are. It's woven into the fabric of our present. It shapes the choices we make.
We're all connected to the past in ways we may not even realize.
So let's take what we've learned today and carry it forward. Let's honor the memory of those who suffered and those who fought for liberation. And let's use these stories to fuel our own actions, to work towards a world where such atrocities are never repeated.
It's a powerful legacy to carry forward.
It really is. And while we focused on Khonia and Anastasia's stories today, they represent just a small fraction of the countless individuals who are impacted by the Holocaust and liberation.
Each survivor, each liberator, they all carry their own unique story, their own set of experiences that shaped their worldview.
And there's so many more stories out there waiting to be discovered. Each one offers a different perspective on this complex historical event.
Exactly. So keep exploring. Dive into books, documentaries, museums. There's a wealth of information available.
And don't just passively absorb the information. Think critically about what you learn. Question the narratives presented. Seek out diverse perspectives.
The more we learn, the more we understand the nuances of this period and the lasting impact it has had on the world.
Learning about the past isn't just about acquiring knowledge, is it?
No, it's not.
It's about fostering empathy, understanding, and a commitment to building a better future.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, just remember, the journey of understanding, it continues.
Keep asking questions. Keep seeking out diverse perspectives. And keep the conversation going.
Until next time, keep diving deep. It's true, and it's important to remember that, learning about the past, it's not just about acquiring knowledge.
Right.
It's about so much more than that.
Yeah, it's about fostering empathy.
Yeah.
Understanding.
A commitment to actually building a better future.
Exactly. Using that knowledge to create positive change.
That's really well said. So I guess
Yeah.
as we wrap up this deep dive, just remember, the journey of understanding, it doesn't end here.
No, it definitely doesn't. It keeps going.
Keep asking questions, keep seeking out those different perspectives, and keep the conversation going.
Share what you've learned with others, Keep that dialogue alive.
Exactly. Until next time, keep diving deep.